A lark and her momster are coming your way. Gonna tell it how it is, so won't you join us today? Rustling papers, moving shit around. We're totally live. Hi! Welcome to another episode of A Lark and Her Momster. Say hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Hi, honey.
So we are calling today's episode, I've Got a Feeling.
No, we're not. You're not getting away with that. It's called gut feelings, not I've got a feeling.
I think that's pretty. I think that's punny.
You're punny, all right.
It's pretty funny.
You're definitely punny.
But
I
yes.
haven't had enough wine for today's episode yet. I think we need to first toast
Cheers.
the end of a really
Chin.
shitty week.
Couple weeks. Yeah. Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Y'all, it's been intense. If we sound more tired than usual, it's because my anxiety and lupus have been wreaking hell both on myself and my mom.
Yes, because when your anxiety goes up, your mother's anxiety goes up, and thank God for Xanax. Anyway, tell us today a little bit about the wine.
I will tell you about the wine, but before we get into it, I just want to talk about last night's conversation because I think it's important that people know this. So, Mom says, we're going to watch a movie. Or you thought it was a show. She thought it was a show. We're going to watch a movie or a show. And this is after we just finished The Perfect Couple, which was great. Great Netflix show. Highly recommend. Huge twist. Not going to tell you. But
I figured it out. I'd actually figured that one out.
I like how you're like, when I was like, highly recommend. Your head went,
Well, you know, I think A Perfect Couple was good. I think the acting was mostly good, but it was still a little predictable in the end. I know.
To be fair, this is coming from someone who, and I will finish the story. So anyway, I'm looking at this movie my mom suggested, and it's called The Deliverance. Not to be confused with Deliverance.
Which to me was terrifying.
Okay,
yeah,
right?
You know, being in the South with anyway, Deliverance to me was ultimately terrifying.
All things Deliverance are horrifying. So we'll just, Deliverance, not a fan of either. But I'm telling my mom, you know, this is a horror movie. I didn't think you liked horror. And she's like, well, you know, it's like, it's kind of psychological. It's not, you know, and she's like, I just don't like the slasher films. And I'm like, okay, but like those to me aren't real. They're just so like gory and hoaxy and not real. And she's like, well, it's like The Exorcist.
And I'm that's like, not real to me.
I'm like, The Exorcist was traumatizing to so many, including myself. And she goes, well. And I'm just like, okay.
So today.
So we watched that movie really late last night, and then I made her watch Only Murders in the Building after that till like 1 a.m. so I could have something light to watch after that because I was slightly traumatized.
Yes, and then today she smudged the whole house.
I did. Because you watch that stuff, you don't know what comes in, and we're all about love and light over here, so I did. I smudged the whole house. But today's episode, because you know why I smudged the house? I had a gut feeling.
You had a gut feeling?
I had a gut feeling.
Oh, that's good. But are you ever going to tell us about the wine today?
Oh, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yes. Coming back to that. Today's wine.
The whole point of the beginning of this podcast
is to talk about the wine. I know.
And not the wine, because your mother made you watch a movie, but the wine that we're drinking.
You're so punny. All right. So today's wine is apropos. Why the fuck do I love that word? Apropos. It's very apropos because it's called Misfits and Mavens Pinot Noir.
And it's that time of the year.
It is. For what?
Misfits and Mavens.
Oh, Misfits and Mavens. I'm like, for Pinot Noir, it's always that time of the year, but okay. And it's a really cool bottle. We will put a picture of it on on my Instagram or my mom's Instagram once she learns how to use it.
I think there's a way to put it in the show notes.
There's not, but that's cute that you think that.
No, they put stuff in the show notes for other podcasts.
Cool, well, you do that, and you figure that one out while I do the rest of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'll find someone who can figure it out.
Eventually. Mm-hmm. All right, so today's wine, Misfits and Mavens Pinot Noir, is light ruby in color with vivid pops of strawberry, raspberry, and vanilla notes. It's a medium bodies and juicy combination of red fruities, laces with hints of clove, spice, and tobacco.
It really is a very lovely wine. It tastes very yummy and it's not too heavy. So I think it's really good. And the label is just super cool.
Oh, the label is really, really cool. It reminds me of like a Mardi Gras float.
It does.
It's very, very cool. So today we are talking about gut feelings because, as you all know from last week's episode, I had one.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, have you ever had gut feelings that you didn't follow and wish you had?
God. If only. I kind of wonder sometimes, had I trusted this gut feeling, where would I be now? And I realize that the universe kind of gives you different lessons and you ask for the path of least resistance, but sometimes your guides are like, nah. So I did not trust my last gut feeling, and I am paying the price for it, but I am trying to learn from it. But I did ask some friends and listeners of the podcast if they had any gut feelings, so I'll tell those stories a little bit later. But tell me a little bit about the research that you've done around gut feelings, because a lot of the issue that I faced in general, and many people face, is this my gut or is this anxiety?
And that's a legitimate question. So I found an article, interestingly, out of Forbes magazine titled How to Stop Overthinking and Start Trusting Your Gut. It was written by a woman named Melody Wilding, who is a licensed master social worker. And the article speaks to studies indicating how by using both your gut feelings and analytical thinking, your decisions are quicker, better, and more accurate than they would be if you left your intuition out of it. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
It also spoke to how if you tap into that gut feeling, you have more confidence in the conclusion. And this is especially true when there's no clear right answer. And so if you're not sure which way to go, trusting your gut really can help you move in that right direction.
Wish I would have done that instead of listening to some people.
You had to...
Love you.
Love you more. Contrary to popular belief, intuition is actually a function of our nervous system. Our digestive tracts contain 100 million neurons. And this is why scientists refer to the digestive system as the second brain.
I have heard that before.
Wow.
Which I think is pretty interesting.
It is. It's fascinating. I think the whole anatomical, physiological connection between our bodies and our brain and the outside world, we're learning so much more. Think of quantum physics and how all of that comes into play. And it really does speak to some of the research that I found. And of course, there's a lot of research out there. We could go for hours talking about all the research.
And the fact that so much of the research has been done on men and not female.
Well, these
bodies.
are both of the articles that I'm speaking to today were written by women.
Interesting. Okay.
So, anyway.
Yeah, go women.
Go women.
Go goddesses.
I really got a cute t-shirt.
She did. She got a very cute t-shirt. But we can't show it to you, so that doesn't...
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, anyway, it's my Halloween t-shirt. So, we use our gut to make decisions. And if we do it the right way, it works with the brain to rapidly recall past experiences, second knowledge, personal preferences and needs.
Like
so
peace.
Intuition is an amalgamation of experiential and emotional data.
Oh, wow.
So going to your question, though, about differentiating between intuition and anxiety, there was an article in Psychology Today by Yvonne Castaneda. She's a LICSW, and she spoke in the article to intuition being that inner voice that says something is right or wrong. It's a deep knowing that guides you in a way that might not always make logical sense, yet it feels true to you. right? That
Yeah.
true to you feeling.
Yeah.
Anxiety, on the other hand, is the mind's way of trying to protect us, often based on fear or past experiences that weren't positive, and it creates doubt, overthinking, worrying, or that need to control things. I know nothing about that.
Neither do I.
It's a constant loop of those kind of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. So the question that she addresses in this article
Right.
was, how do you know the difference? And she suggests that you listen to your body. Gut feelings or intuition, it's a sense of knowing that doesn't come with physical tension. And it can be kind of hard to explain. Whereas anxiety, you feel that physical tension, right?
Right.
And it's that sense of, I just have a feeling.
Yeah.
I have a feeling. And we all have that. I just have a feeling.
I just have a feeling. I just feel this. Something doesn't feel right.
Exactly.
Or this feels right. You know, even if you don't know, you're like,
oh, this feels good.
this feels right. This feels peaceful or something.
Right.
Not what I'm experiencing right now.
Amen.
But
You are absolutely, positively correct in that.
right.
Anxiety, though, comes with that physical discomfort, a tightness in your chest, a racing heart,
Insomnia.
a feeling of restlessness,
Definite
hence the
restlessness.
insomnia, and it
Lupus
feels
flare-ups.
it feels urgent and overwhelming. So she suggests there are 3 ways that you can narrow down and differentiate. One is journaling. So intuition often becomes clearer if we write down our feelings.
Okay, so can I just say that's really interesting? Because a lot of what I noted, right, when I was journaling, and I do my manifestation journal all the time. Sorry, guys, I burped.
Do you feel better?
I do.
Well, thank you.
I'm just glad no one could hear it, even though I told you what I did.
Yeah.
But as I was journaling, I kind of looked back on my I kind of looked back on my
for
journal,
you to say.
and I realized a lot of what I said about my past working environment was, I feel as though these are friends. I feel comfortable. I feel as though they care about my health. I feel supported, even though things were new in certain parts. And when I wrote down about, my first day, because I journaled on my first day, I wrote in my journal, I'm no longer going to have time to myself to even manifest. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking back, I realized all I wanted to manifest was money. I wasn't specific in the fact that I needed
We
peace.
talked about that last week.
I know.
The difference between
But what's interesting is my
specific
gut.
and Pacific.
Right. But what's interesting is I had that gut feeling that something isn't right. Something doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel like this is the right step. Something feels off.
Well, but remember, you started that journaling process after the new job.
No,
So
I
we-
didn't. I
well-
started journaling. I can tell you,
Well, no,
hundreds
I meant
of
in
days
terms
ago.
about the new job, journaling. This is where you mentioned
Well, but-
journaling what you were feeling with the job you were in.
Right.
Yet you didn't journal.
But when I
have
did-
feelings about this new job that I'm unsure about.
I did actually, because
Oh.
I was writing pros and cons. And the pros were money. And I also wrote down, everyone keeps saying that this is more money. This is a growth opportunity. So I'm
Growth
listening.
opportunity.
I'm
Yeah.
listening to all these other voices instead of that gut instinct that is like, something ain't quite right, girl.
Well, the other that I'm not disvaluing those. That's not the right term. but
Invalidating?
I'm not invalidating that perspective. Hindsight's always 20/20. The other thing that she suggested was to find inner stillness. That intuition emerges when our mind is clear and calm. So, kind of going to that place of meditating on it.
Which I do.
And thinking through, okay, tell me, is this a good fit? The money's there, but is
that's what's
everything
so-
else going to fall into place?
And that's what's so interesting. When I meditated, I would still come back to this feeling of something doesn't feel right.
And that's your gut.
Something doesn't feel right. But then she also keep going.
Easy for you to say.
I will. Keep going.
The third thing that she talked about was talking it out. Sharing with others can help you find perspective. And I think...
Be careful with that one.
Well, I think as someone who lives with high levels of anxiety, learning this earlier in my life might have helped provide methods to better determine whether what I was feeling was coming from my second brain or from fear, the anxiety that goes along with that fear. And I think because you have inherited that anxiety from your mother.
It's so fun, by the way, to live with all the if you guys looked up my health chart and looked up the many diagnoses, you'd be like, how are you doing? You doing okay?
Yeah,
and somehow I am.
You are.
Somehow.
And I think that's where talking out with people around the anxiety is something, and one of the things that I'm learning to honor in you is your new ability to embrace the difference between what's anxiety and what's gut.
Right.
So in the future, if you come to me, I would probably say, let's write down the pros and the cons.
But I did.
Around the gut. Well, but there's nothing wrong with pursuing a new opportunity. There's nothing wrong with growing. Right. And sometimes our anxiety keeps us from doing that.
Right.
The difference is gut versus anxiety. And so I was tapping into your anxiety because you had a lot of it.
Right.
And I think other people were tapping into what they've experienced when you're highly anxious.
Makes sense.
And so that's kind of like, well, you can do whatever you feel like you need to do. And if you decide to do this, it does give you growth opportunity. It does. And boy, are you growing.
I would say.
And you're making more money, but you're growing.
I'm growing.
You just won't have a life.
Well, I'm growing because I'm learning to tap into my gut and realize how important it is. And realize how important that even if you do talk it out with people, listen to what your inner knowing just feels. Just listen to it. Even if you're like, this is silly. I mean, I have stories from people who...
I can't wait to hear some of the stories that you got from people.
I have stories from people that, range from whether it was about an ex that someone was just like, I just feel like this isn't gonna work. Something just feels not right about this person. I mean, yeah, I know you have some of those about my exes.
My feelings about your exes, but I have some friends' feelings about my exes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting when I talk to my friends who are like, yeah, we had a feeling this wasn't gonna. And I'm like, well, why didn't anybody ever tell me?
Exactly. Why didn't they? Because they knew it wouldn't do any good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
tell me some of the stories.
Yeah, I will. So besides my own, which is obviously very traumatizing to myself, but we'll get there. We'll get through it. One of the first stories I want to read to you is by a friend of mine named Caitlin. I'm not going to give her last name, but she's a very interesting upbringing. I'm not going to get too into it. That's her story to tell, but I love the story that she sent me.
I do think, though, just saying one thing about her background in terms of an intense religious kind of situation.
Yes, she did come from a very intense religious situation, and I'm going to read this, and by all means, just know we don't care what religion you are as long as you never impose it on somebody else and as long as you do good. So, but with that, this is fascinating. I'm going to read it as she wrote it, so you'll hear a lot of I's, but obviously that's not me talking about it. This is Caitlin. So here we go. You ready?
And she gave you permission to use her name.
She did give me permission to use her name. So thanks, girl. She's also an incredible person. Just shout out because she became a mom to two girls who already, had a biological mom, but she is by far one of the best. I hate the word stepmom because there's just always such a weird negative connotation. She's a co-mom. Yeah.
She's a co-mom.
She's a phenomenal mother. So just shout out to her. She's killing it. And an amazing artist, but I will stop gushing over her. So this story.
And she loves the podcast.
Yeah, she's great. So she says, This might be too generalized, but growing up, my parents used to ask my opinion on new friends, colleagues, especially in regard to their religious spaces because they thought I was a good judge of character. So they would send me in like a canary in a coal mine to see what my first impressions were. And one time, I told them that I really did not like the pastor of the church we were at. At the time, I also attended the high school that was attached to the church, so I saw a lot of him. I said that something about him was off-putting. I didn't think he was a good person, and I didn't want to be around him. I actually told my parents several times they should transfer me to a different school altogether. They were really offended because to them this was a man of God, and it was really disrespectful to hold that viewpoint. Anyway, after I graduated, the FBI raided the school, and it turned out the pastor and the headmaster, who I also wasn't very fond of, had embezzled over $9 million from the parents and teachers over the past 10-ish years. They had so much money, they were literally buying and hiding gold bricks.
Wow.
And wait, the best part. And yes, I was tremendously smug afterwards.
Go, Caitlin.
Go, Caitlin.
You earned that smugness.
She sent me a picture afterwards and it says vindication.
Yeah. You know, and it
feelings.
just speaks to the fact that people in high power, regardless of whether it's high power religiously or whatever, can potentially take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
And that is so unfair for the people who are working so hard to just make life better, make things happen.
Right.
So, yeah. Go, Caitlin.
Thanks, Caitlin, for that one. That was a great one. And this next one is by a mutual friend of ours, Emily.
Oh, yeah.
Emily. Although I always want to pronounce her name Emily. I don't know why. I don't want to make it French, but
I
it's
don't
not.
either.
She's fantastic. But she said, when I was really little, I was at the grocery store with my mom, with her bio mom, and my brother, Forish at the time. And this guy followed us in. I was probably like 6 or 7 at the time. I remember being so unbelievably frightened, and I just couldn't figure out why. I had this adrenaline anxiety feeling in my body. My hair was standing up on the back of my neck and everything. I got this eerie feeling, and I put my brother in the cart because I just felt like he was going to try to do something to us. I remember my brother was trying to climb out and being just a goofy little kid, and I yelled at him, and I was like, "You stay in the cart." Well, come to find out, there had been a creepy guy walking around the parking lot trying to talk to moms with their children. I'm not sure if anything happened, but it was super scary. And when I heard that there was a guy creepily stalking women and children, I just knew. I immediately knew something was up.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
I remember, it's like the time where you were just like, get in the car. You just knew. And we talked about that in a previous podcast.
Yeah, I knew. I just had that gut feeling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't at the time. I was little.
Although the time that you disappeared at the water park, I did not have a gut feeling. I had massive anxiety.
I was fine. I was having a blast.
If you guys could see my face right now. Yeah, you were having so much fun until all of a sudden you were
until I was
heard your name over the loudspeaker.
Oh God, you guys ever hear your name at a water park over a loudspeaker in Destin, Florida? It's not.
You're in trouble.
Your gut feeling is, oh shit, I done fucked up. That's your gut feeling.
Even if you're only 7.
Even if you're only 7.
Or 8. I can't remember how old you were. I think you were 8.
I was 7.
7's when we went to New York City.
No, I was 7 when we went to Destin. I remember being 7. But I have that weird birthday that's on the cusp, but that doesn't matter because we're talking about gut feelings.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. We get off topic, I know.
Any other gut feeling stories?
Yes. So another friend of mine, Juliet, says that she always knows or always knew that her kids had health issues and like these chronic autoimmune health issues even before doctors diagnosed them. Or if doctors would say, "Oh, I think everything's fine," she would tell them, "No, I know something isn't right." She herself has her own chronic illnesses and autoimmune issues that she deals with. Mm-hmm. So, she goes to bat with that gut mother instinct of like, listen, my kids aren't okay. So, she fought for that until finally people realized, oh, you're right. your kids aren't okay.
Right.
And this is what we're going to do about it. But she also said, and this kills me, I can also always tell when they're lying. She's like, I let it slide often and wait, but I feel the lies.
I can actually, Juliet, I feel you, because I could always tell. I would try to tell myself that wasn't what was happening, but I always knew when you were lying.
I know. It was
especially about boys. That and things you bought.
They're great. Yeah. Which I don't now. Now I just fess up.
Yeah,
because it is a hell of a lot easier.
Where'd you get that? Oh, so-and-so gave it to me.
To be fair, I have a really great guy who does do nice things for me, which is rare.
Yeah.
Unlike my last guy who just bought me random shit to help me survive the apocalypse occasionally.
That is what you got for the holidays. I do remember, yes.
To be fair, it was, it'll get you through the apocalypse. But anyway, but it's not pretty, and I like pretty things. I'm like a crow or a raven. So I have another story. This is from a friend of ours, Suzanne, who wrote in, when Patrick was in middle school, this is her son, which was 2 blocks down and 3 streets over, and I was working downtown, I just all of a sudden decided that I needed to pick him up after school and take him to his grandmother's. I drive 25 minutes each way on a late lunch hour to pick him up. I did it every day for the rest of the school year. Just had a feeling. A few days after I began picking him up, someone began attempting to abduct children walking home from that same school, and they did not catch this person for 3.5 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Again.
What year was that?
She did not say, but again, it's just that motherly instinct of like...
What's the difference between your middle school and his... Like, you guys are close in age, right?
Are we? I
think you are.
I think he's a little bit older. He's a little bit older.
But not much older.
I don't know.
Yeah. I have some vague recollection of that happening in reading about that in Santa Monica. I do.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Some guy that was... So it might have been something retrospectively that I read. But, yeah. I'll have to ask her about that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, gut feelings are so important.
They are important. And it is interesting because I've reached out to a couple of other moms who are just like, I can't think of a specific instance, but as a mom, they just have gut instincts about their kiddos, or they have gut instincts about what's going to happen. And it's just interesting that they listen to them, and it's good to listen to them. There are days that I read stories about people who are like, yeah, I decided not to leave that day, and then find out that like the train they normally take was in an accident, or the bus they normally take was in an accident. I read these stories all of the time.
That reminds me
of what?
Of a situation that happened to me when I was staying with my great aunt Dot in New York City.
Yeah.
And I was staying with her. This is in the 70s.
Okay.
And what was great in New York, like many major metropolitan cities, when you're an adolescent, you often have a little bit more freedom because of the public transportation system, right?
Well, especially back then.
Yes, well, the crime was about the same then as it is now.
Yeah, we know more about it
right,
now.
Exactly.
Right?
So, but I can remember I went down to get on the subway, and something just told me not to get on that particular subway car, not to get on that train at that moment. So I waited to get on a later train, and when I did, they had stopped those trains because someone had been hit by the train that I almost got on.
Wow.
So that's a good example.
Goosebumps.
Of a gut feeling.
Yeah.
Just being but I think when we're younger, we're much more...
We're more intuitive, in tune. Yeah.
Right, with those feelings, because we haven't built up all the resistance and the expectations.
Right.
We also often don't have that same sense of we don't have that history of fear. We don't
Right.
have a lot of the stuff that goes into the anxiety part,
Right.
where we question, is this God, oh no, I'm being ridiculous, I'm overthinking,
Although
I'm
I will
putting all
say,
of that in place.
if you listen to true crime podcast, overthink everything, because that can only help you in situations.
I don't think it's overthinking. I think it's following your gut and being over-prepared.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that you've got an alarm system at your house, you're prepared with your illegal mace.
With the knife next to your bed.
Whatever you need to feel
Right.
safe.
Right.
And because the reality is crime often happens so quickly that responding by going and getting a gun out of a gun safe, which is the
It would
safest
take
place
far too long.
it's not going to happen.
No.
So there are better
That's why you have
ways.
your Louisville Slugger just next to your bed.
Amen.
Or, you know me. I have my...
I have the mall roller.
I know, you do. And then
I do.
I have my ridiculous knife in a place where you don't know where it is, but I can access it very quickly. Not you, I just mean the general public. So
Oh, okay. I was going to go. I know
And
where
I
it
also
is.
have my dog. Who,
Yes, you do.
Let me tell you, that girl,
She knows.
She-
Remember that time here?
Yep. When there was
Yeah.
somebody looking
We
in
were-
cars.
Yeah.
I always say, I was like, yeah, Luna caught an almost burglar. Sure did.
Well, I don't even know if that guy was looking in the cars here. He was. She.
It was
woke
weird.
Us,
She woke
us
me up out of it. I was in a dead sleep
Me too.
And I just heard this low rumble.
Growl.
Like Luna is everyone's friend until she's not. And Luna just had this like deep like Cujo growl that I was like, ooh, I haven't heard this one
and
before.
she wasn't upstairs, so we came downstairs.
She was upstairs. She let me know upstairs when in the upstairs
Oh.
room. She woke me out of a dead
Because she
sleep.
came
And then
down
I
here.
opened the door and she ran down the stairs and got into this window.
And when
then
she was in
started to
here
like
is when I
growl
heard
and
her.
bark. Yes.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my contacts in, so I couldn't see. So I went upstairs to get my glasses, and then she woke you up. So we're watching. I'm calling the cops, and Luna's like, "I'll kill this motherfucker." But like,
And it was some guy just sitting in his truck.
it was really weird.
It was just sitting there, and he had this weird green light on his dashboard, and it was.
But it was moving. Like the
It
light
was
was
like
moving, and
3
it
a.m..
looked. Yeah, it was weird. It was super, super weird.
It just had an icky feeling.
But Luna's really interesting because she has, and this is something that a lot of people are like, oh, if my dog doesn't like you, I don't like you. That's true, because Luna will have instant reactions to people. And I think back to them and I'm like, oh, she didn't initially like that person. She had to warm up to them. But I didn't notice it until I think back on it.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, if she initially likes you, if she comes up to you, if she gives you her butt to scratch, cool, we're good. But if she comes up to you, sniffs your hand, and then kind of walks away and isn't that interested in you, you're my ex. So...
or yeah. I do think we all need to really think through when we have those gut feelings.
Absolutely.
And try to determine, is this my second brain?
Right.
Or is this some form of anxiety?
Yeah.
And delineate
Yeah,
between
Luna.
the two. So
She was like, oh. I don't know if you heard her.
I did. She's under the table and she's like right under me. She's
Aw.
agreeing. So yeah. Well, I think we would love to hear more stories about gut feelings that any of you may have had.
Yes, absolutely.
And how it turned out, whether
Yeah.
it turned out well or like Larkin in this new job, not so great because you didn't follow them. And we'd just love to hear in general if you have some ideas on topics you would like us to address. We are always looking for guests for the show. We're
Yes.
trying to find out how we can do it remotely, like through a virtual session.
I figured that out.
Oh, okay, never mind. We can have you as a guest.
Virtually, yes.
And it's interesting because I talked to someone recently who said, you know, she's the mom of sons. And she goes, well, I have sons. And my response to her was, but you're a daughter. And she said to me, but you wouldn't want my mother on there. And I go, well, that sounds like a story.
Yes, it does.
So again, it's really about those mother-daughter kinds of situations, whether you're a mother or a daughter or both.
Or if you've had strained relationships, had to create those boundaries, good relationships, we really don't mind. We just kind of want to know what it's like.
And our guests from what would have been last week's podcast that we had to postpone. We'll be here in, I think, 3 weeks. They'll be on the podcast.
Not next weekend, right? But the weekend after?
No.
No. Not next weekend.
Not the next weekend. But the next weekend.
And that is 3 weekends.
So
okay,
they
right.
will be on the podcast, and we're super excited to have them as our guests.
Yeah.
And again, please share. Please let other people know about the podcast. Give us your feedback. We want to learn and grow, and listening to so many of the podcasts that we listen to. We won't mention My Favorite Murder or Morbid or Crime Junkie or The Deck or, any of the murder podcasts that we true crime podcasts that we listen to. But what's really funny is they all talk about how it takes time. That the podcast didn't take off.
Right.
But it really took a lot of feedback from people listening.
Yeah.
For them to be able to grow into and provide content that people wanted to listen to. So please share with us. We would love to hear from you.
We really, really would. And you can either send us messages if you know us and you're already connected. Send me a message via my Instagram. Or you can always email us at larkandmomster@gmail.com, LARKANDMOMSTER@gmail.com.
We're going to go drink the rest of the wine.
We are, and eat some dinners.
Okay.
All
see
right.
you guys next week.
We will.
Yes,
we will. We won't see you physically.
No.
But we'll be here.
Yeah.
If you want to learn, laugh, live it up, and drink with us.
Okay. Yay.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening.
Bye.
Over and out. Bye.